Some of Jesus' teachings hit us right between the eyes. Some of them land on our hearts. Others of them are like a kick in the butt. But this one, it's more of a punch to the gut. Hey guys, welcome to our special series here at 30 on Thursdays in which we focus on Jesus' world-famous teaching known as the Sermon on the Mount. Pastor David here with you, and in this week's episode, Jesus tells us the exact way he wants us to do something that most American Christians have no desire to do in any way. You'll see what I mean as we listen to what Jesus has to say. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. All right, this might be a short teaching from Jesus, but it still packs quite a punch, right? See, in this part of Jesus' sermon, he addresses the wrong way to fast before telling us the right way to fast, which, if you'll recall, has kind of been his pattern for the last few lessons. Now, in case you have no idea what fasting is, here's a simple definition. Biblically speaking, fasting is intentionally abstaining from food in order to spend more time with God. Fasting is not merely abstaining from food. That's called bad dieting, all right? Fasting is forfeiting food so that you can increase or improve your intimacy with God. The purpose of fasting is not to lose weight. The purpose of fasting is to gain an answer to prayer, or to grow in your understanding of God's will, or just to increase your focus on Him. When you fast, you're willfully denying yourself like a basic need in order to model genuine trust in God's sufficiency. Now, there's no set requirement on the length of a fast. A fast could last a day, part of a day, several days, a week, even longer. If you don't know it, Jesus actually fasted for 40 days and 40 nights before he started his earthly ministry. Now, there have been several times in my life where I fasted for multiple days, but I've never come anywhere close to 40 days. If I did a 40-day fast, I'd probably mention it in every single sermon that I preach, right? But Jesus conducted his fast out in the wilderness without calling attention to it whatsoever. He didn't attach any sort of spiritual show to his spiritual discipline. He just spent time with his Heavenly Father. And that's the point that he's trying to make in this part of his sermon. Jesus is warning us against putting on a show when we fast. He says, don't be like the hypocrites when you fast. Now, those guys would disfigure and contort their faces in order to call attention to their fasting. They wanted the world to see how much they were suffering for their faith in order to seem more spiritual than everybody else. Now, sadly, this was a regular occurrence because the religious leaders of Jesus' day fasted twice a week. Now, those guys, more than anybody else, should have known better. But on the days that they fasted, they made themselves look disheveled and unkept. They weren't their usual put-together selves. Fasting is the only time that these religious actors would look bad in front of others. They wanted everyone to see their suffering and think highly of them for it. But Jesus bluntly said that the earthly reward that they sought would be the only one they'd get because his Heavenly Father would never honor such a superficial act. And then Jesus tells his disciples how they should fast. And he starts with a familiar phrase, when you fast. He didn't say if, he said when. So bottom line, Jesus fully expects his disciples will fast from time to time. And when we do, we got to do it the way he says. He wants our hygiene and our grooming and our clothing and even our disposition on the days that we're fasting to be the same as any other day. In other words, we don't need to tell anyone we're fasting, and nor do we need to show anyone that we're fasting. And if we obey Jesus' commands when it comes to fasting, he promises the reward of our Heavenly Father. So let's get to that. Whether you fasted regularly in the past or you have never fasted one time, here are a few important reminders when it comes to fasting according to Jesus' teaching. Remember, Don't turn faith into a show. We've been highlighting this warning across the last few weeks. Just like he did with giving and praying, Jesus tells us not to turn fasting into some sort of spiritual act where we seek the admiration of others. There's no heavenly reward in that, so just avoid it completely. Second, be willing to fast when necessary. Look, guys, fasting isn't comfortable. It's not convenient. It isn't easy or fun. But sometimes fasting is necessary in order to discover God's will, or to receive an answer to prayer, or just to spend some additional time with God. So when he calls you to fast, trust him and obey him, but make sure you fast according to Jesus' instructions. That means avoiding the hypocrisy of the religious leaders. When you fast, don't draw attention to yourself or to the fact that you're fasting. Fasting, like everything else in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, is a matter of the heart. It's between you and him. So there's no need to drag anyone else into it. All right, guys, because of the uniqueness of this topic, it deserves some further discussion. And to help with that, we've put together a simple Bible study that you can find in the description box directly beneath this video. We hope that you'll take the time to work through it and get a better understanding of Jesus' idea of fasting so that you can fast the proper way. And then we'll meet you right back here for the very next part of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount.